Morning, all. All right, so we are currently 3 days away from unrestricted free agency. So it is kind of the calm before the storm, right? And the next big live stream on the channel, I've left everything intact upstairs. I've left everything up there that we had up there. It's a different computer, it's a different webcam, it's a different microphone upstairs than the one we have down here. So it's the entertainment guy set, and since he's been kind of useless, I'll use his stuff. So yeah, and last night we had the meetup, which was well attended, about 40 people there. I thought it was good too. There were actually girls that were present, so our daughter was quite happy to actually have girls to talk to and a puppy dog to hang out with. And we also brought along a soccer ball and a frisbee because we knew there was going to be too many people for, I mean, we're only playing 5-on-5. We had four teams. So there was going to be some time where people had not a lot to do. And since it's a large park we were using, sure, why not? So it went really well. Keep an eye on the Facebook page for the Hockey Guy about when the next one's going to be. I'm holding off for this week, but we'll see how things look going forward. And yeah, odds are it'll probably be 2 weeks. I'm thinking 2 weeks. But we'll see. Again, it went really well. Love making friends through the channel and watching the community grow, and you can see that. The meetups we were having 3 years ago, I think we get like, I don't know, 15, 16, sometimes 18 people, and now it's a lot. So it is a lot. So yeah, at some point in time, we'll probably have to get something a little more formal going on with it. But yeah, for now, that meetup last night was a lot of fun. So, into hockey news of the day. And the Detroit Red Wings, who are not normally in news of the day, and Detroit Red Wings fans will let me know that regularly. Like, oh, we're not on the board. Good. Well, today you're on the board. I'm wearing Detroit, and it is for a good reason. Mark Staal is sticking around. 1 year, $2 million. There is a no movement clause involved. Hey, now that expansion's done, no movement clauses can come back. Watch for them to come back. Watch for teams to be signing no movement clauses because they don't have to worry about protection for expansion, right? So it's a good deal for Staal. It's a good deal for the Wings. The Wings' blue line is going to improve. Staal's role is going to be a little bit reduced from what it was this past season. And yeah, I think it's a good move by Yzerman, which I think that's kind of a broken record for me to say. That's a good move for Yzerman. Another good move for Yzerman. He continues to do quite well. I know there was some criticism of his drafting by people who I don't know what they're watching because his drafting has been pretty on point, and to the point where even when he drafted Sider a couple years ago and people were like, I don't know about Maureen Sider, and now, yeah, he looks fantastic and they can't wait to get him into the lineup. So yeah, Detroit's making the right moves. Speaking of a team making the right move today, that would be the Vancouver Canucks buying out Jake Virtanen. Now, in keeping Jake Virtanen last year, it was part of the reason they lose to Foley. I don't think it's all of it. I don't. I think there was more at play here. And keeping Virtanen seemed like a good move at the time on the point that he had scored goals the year before. He'd been good. He had a rough playoffs, but he'd been relatively good, right? And so you're looking at going, well, we don't want to lose this asset for nothing, and he's still young. This year has been a complete and total disaster. On the ice, disaster. Off the ice, also disaster. And therefore, Virtanen is on the road to a buyout. They've got him on unconditional waivers today. I would be interested to see if another team signs Virtanen. Is this it? And that's a legit question. I don't know if another team's going to sign Jake Virtanen. I don't know if this is it for his NHL career. It may very well be. Like I said, it was just a miserable year all around. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with him and if he ends up landing somewhere else. RFAs. So RFAs, technically, the property of teams that currently have them under contract, right? So restricted free agent Ilya Samsonov for the Caps. Brian McClellan saying that the plan is to get into discussions on Wednesday, starting as soon as UFA RFA period really gets going. They're going to have discussions with him on a contract. And I will say this, Samsonov had an interesting season, up and down year for him. How much is he worth? Do you just sign a 2-year contract? I would think 2-year contract. But the long-term contracts are far more prominent right now than I thought they would be. I'm mildly surprised at just how many of the longer-term contracts we're seeing or that we're rumored to see as well. So For a league that's got a flat cap and there's not a lot of money, general managers are acting like there's a lot of money, and that they no problem, it'll be fine. And then we'll see how many teams in September are struggling to get under the cap in anticipation of October and the regular season getting going. So for teams that have cap space, hold on to that right now because you're going to be very popular throughout the summer. Kevin Adams, speaking of a team with cap space, the Buffalo Sabres, right? They didn't get enough for Reinhart. I think we can agree with that, right? And again, if you and I've said this for years, since before I had a channel, if you can't get enough for a player, you don't trade him. And I know the dangers of that, and I know there's dangers of if they hadn't traded Reinhart, but I personally think if you can't get enough for a player, then you hold on to him until you can. And I think a good example of that, Matt Duchene. The Matt Duchene deal with Colorado. They held on to Matt Duchene for, I think it was like 18 months of rumors and where's he going to go and what's going to happen. And then when they made the move, it was the right move. So, Kevin Adams is saying he is okay with Eichel being a Sabre into next season. Now, he's saying this while basically there's been some discussion about how little communication there seems to be between the team and the player. And this is a situation, of course, that's going on after Eichel has said that he feels like that relationship between him and the team is broken. So that definitely doesn't help. But Adams, at least publicly, is saying, yeah, I'm fine with him sticking around. Now, that may be his way of telling GMs, I'm not bringing down my astronomical asking price for Eichel. But after he didn't get enough for Reinhart, he really can't afford to be in a situation where he didn't get enough for Eichel either. So we'll see what happens. Because they did well on the Ristolainen deal. And then buffaloed it. And didn't get enough for Reinhart. And they don't want to buffalo it again. So we'll see. Trevor Moore has signed a 2-year extension with the LA Kings. I love the strides that Moore made this year. And it's interesting because the Kings, it looked like we're going to lose a pretty good young forward in Lizotte, who they didn't protect. And I thought they were going to protect Lizotte. And then Seattle takes McDermott. So Seattle deciding they'll take McDermott. And I get the toughness aspect. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of lineup they have. But at the very least, if you're a Kings fan, you have to be relieved that you didn't lose any of your good young forwards. And Moore, who was protected, of course, 2 years, $3.75 million. That's not too shabby. So the Oilers and the Leafs, this whole saga continues, right? Now, an Oilers team that was rumored to be ready to get rid of Cassian hasn't yet. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring in Zach Hyman before the 28th, before the opening of free agency. And here's why. If they get him in a trade right now, they can get him signed to an 8-year contract. If they sign him as an unrestricted free agent, they can only sign him to a 7-year deal. So it's that 8th year. It's that 8th year that they're looking to acquire from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Kyle Dubas says he knows the value of that 8th year. He knows how important that 8th year is. So he is not willing to move on his ask. He is perfectly fine with losing Hyman for nothing. If that means Hyman only gets that 7-year deal from the Oilers, that's fine with him. So yeah, they're willing to lose him for nothing. And I do wonder like how that's going to look, but I understand what he's saying. That 8th year does have some value, and I'm sure the Oilers are probably looking at what the Barclay Goodrow deal was with the Rangers and saying, well, that only cost them a 7th. We don't think it should cost us any more or much more than that. And again, Toronto might be looking at that and saying, no, we think that 8th year is worth some money, or worth some assets in order for you to save some money, because that 8th year on the contract would also likely bring the cap hit down. That maybe it goes from $5.5 million down to $5.25 million in cap. So apparently the talks are broken off, and this is where we're at. The Toronto Maple Leafs still have Zach Hyman as their property, and the Oilers have to wait until the 28th to sign Hyman. But apparently that deal's all done. It's all good and done. Now I want to talk a bit about the draft yesterday. Yeah. And there's Carolina's there, and with the word timeouts. There were too many timeouts yesterday, right? I had anticipated yesterday that I would get up. I would do rounds 2 through probably 5. I figured rounds 2 through probably like 5. And I figured that would take 3 hours. Because a couple years ago for the draft, when we get into rounds 2 through 7, I couldn't keep up on my board. I was trying to write down all the draft picks, couldn't keep up, and it was ridiculous. And yesterday, that draft went on for a long time. Like I think, what was it, like 7 hours or something ridiculous? Like it was to get to round seven. I know I was getting ready to leave to head to Coquitlam, and it was still going. So that's too long. The NHL needs to understand that's too long. And I get the whole, they want to sell ad space, and if it's longer, they can get more advertising money. But I don't know how many people watch till the end of that. I really don't. Maybe Carolina fans. Maybe they were doing a drinking game every time that their team called a timeout during the draft to either make a trade or figure out who they're going to take. But it was ridiculous. So the NHL, which I've never had that problem with their draft before, where I've been like, wow, this is going on for a while. That was insane. And I think the first round is taking a little bit too long as well. The first round took, what, 4 hours? That's too long. I saw people mentioning in the live stream that the NFL draft takes too long. Yes, it does. We did the NFL draft last year on the Entertainment Guy channel. And it does. It takes too long. There's too many commercials. What drives me nuts is you see on the clock, and they've got 4 minutes to make their pick. And then they'll show the panel, and then they'll go to commercial break, and then they'll come back to the panel, and then they'll go to the pick. And it's like, no. People are not here to listen to... I mean, the panel did very well. But we are essentially watching the draft. We want to watch and see who gets drafted, and then move on with our lives. And it just felt like it took too long. I know if I didn't have a channel, I wouldn't have watched that. I would have watched like 15 minutes of yesterday's rounds 2 through 7. I would have been like, yeah, nah, this is taking too long. I'll go look at the charts later on who got drafted by who. So yeah, I would hope that next year, when the anticipation is to have a draft where it's an in-person draft, that we don't see that again. The draft takes too long. We aren't that interested in who's in the fourth round. The one that I always get a kick out of too is when they show that graphic of here's notables in the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. It's usually the same guys. Now, I didn't see rounds 5 through 7 yesterday, so I don't know if they put the same graphic up with the same guys, but it's almost always the same guys, which shows how rare it is to get huge hits in rounds 5 through 7. But I get a kick out of that. And yeah, so hopefully next year the draft is more reasonable time. But it meant that with that draft, with that live stream being that long, those 2 live streams combined with last night's 4 hours of street hockey, I was kind of done by the end of the night. So yeah, I normally would have far more videos on the channel, and I just didn't. The live stream just took it right out of me. So I will put it this way. Next year when it's the entry draft, I don't know that I want to do rounds 2 through 7 as a live stream. I think I might be better off to watch it, write down the notables, and then just do a review after. Because I think that would probably be an easier, less frustrating setup. And again, for anybody who goes to the channel and sees that insanely long live stream for rounds 2 through 3, because I only did rounds 2 and 3, it would be I don't know if I want to watch 3.5 hours. That's insane. So yeah, 7.5 hours I believe in the two live streams that we've had this weekend. So it's been a lot. So I apologize if people are getting tired of hearing my voice and looking at my face, because I think there's probably a lot of people in that camp. But hey, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.